Hello, everybody. How you doing today? Hope you're having a good day, and hope you're being able to be out and successful in doing something for God today. I mean, doing something for God is talking to people about God, sharing His message, talking to people about what's right and wrong. All those things are necessary, and we do that by our example and, of course, by word of mouth. And so, do what you can today. Here on social media, you have the opportunity just to forward and share messages of a spiritual nature. So take advantage of that. The title of our lesson today is Being Taught of God. That means learning about God and what He wants from us. It should be a lifelong endeavor. A lot of people do not do that. The word teach, it implies, number one, a desire to learn or to cause knowledge to take place. Maybe teaching someone a skill or just simple wisdom and understanding and what they should be doing. And definitely, as parents, they should teach the children between right and wrong, and of course, the consequences of doing wrong. And so, we learn when someone teaches us, and we also learn from hands on experience. A lot of people get their knowledge from basically just living life. And there's many ways that we need to be taught, and there's many things that we need to be taught, especially if we want to go to heaven. The law of God is something that's very important, which most of this world just kind of rejects and ignores. And then, of course, there's the law of society, which more people would want, but it's come down to the point that people choose for themselves what they think is right and wrong and just live their life that way, whether society agrees with it or not. And then there's other laws like physical laws, the laws of physics. You step off the roof of a 10-story building, you're going down. That's just the way physics works. And the laws associated with growth. Yeah, we grow up and we learn things as we grow and we develop and we learn to try things and do things. And then, of course, there's other types of laws. There's the laws of etiquette. The laws of how to get along with others. Yeah, there's right ways of treating others and there's wrong ways of treating others. And most of the world can understand those things. But teaching God's laws, that's what's really important. And there's a reason God gave us His laws. Some people just consider these laws are a form of punishment or restriction. God won't let me have any fun, is there seems to be their attitude. And so therefore they rebel against God and they have their fun and do what they want to do. And it doesn't really bother them anymore. But it's not so. It's not a form of punishment. The laws guide us toward being acceptable to God. That's the main function. Our purpose in life is to be acceptable to God and to bring Him glory and honor. And God began His teaching in the garden with the very first commandments. And so He has been teaching mankind His ways for all of this time. Now, we have the choice to allow God to teach us His ways, or we will learn the ways of the world. The worldly ways will cause us to lose our souls in eternal torment because the way of the world is definitely not a spiritual pathway. And so, yeah, it'll cause us to lose our souls. And parents, if you don't teach your children about Jesus and God, then the world is going to teach them to hate Jesus and God. So, yeah, that's a choice you have to make, and you need to guide your children in the right direction. That's the way it's always been, and we'll read that in a little bit. So, we're going to notice some scriptures about being taught of God. Teaching has taken place for many, like I said, from the very beginning. Here's an example in Exodus 4, God speaking to Moses about Aaron. It says, "So you are to speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and as for me, I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you both what you must do." And so, yes, Moses had to go to Egypt to bring his people out, and he was afraid, so he made excuses and said, well, Aaron's a good speaker, let him do it. And later on in Exodus 24:12, the Lord said to Moses, come up to me to the mountain and remain there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the law and the commandments that I have written, so that you may teach them. All right, so notice what he says here. I'm going to give you the law. And what are you going to do with it? You're going to take it and put it up in a nice place and put it on display? No. You're going to take it and you're going to teach these laws to the people. In Deuteronomy 4:14, moreover, at that same time, the Lord commanded me to teach you statutes and ordinances for you to keep in the land which you are about to enter and possess. So when God gave these laws, he was expecting the people to do those laws. And so, it hasn't changed. The Lord does not change. So when he gives us laws, he expects us to do those laws. Deuteronomy 5:31 says, but as for you, stand here by me, that I may speak to you all the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which you shall teach them, and that they may observe them in the land which I give them to possess. And so, not only is Moses teaching the people, it says you got to teach your families this. You got to teach all your brethren these things. And Deuteronomy 6, verse 1 and 2 says, now this is the commandment, the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God has commanded me to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going over to possess it, so that you and your son and your grandson might fear the Lord your God and keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. So yes, there's benefits to doing what God tells people to do. All right, jump forward to Job. Job had some encounters with God, and Job made some great statements and acknowledgments about God. And in Job 6:24 it says, teach me and I will be silent, and show me how I have erred. His friends were accusing him of being a horrible sinner because all this calamity came upon him, and he, for the life of him, he couldn't figure out what he had done to upset God. And so he just humbly comes up and says, show me how I have erred. In Job 33:33, if not, listen to me, keep silent, and I will teach you wisdom. Here's God responding and speaking to Job, and says, just keep silent, I will teach you the wisdom you need. And in 34, Job says, teach thou me what I do not see. If I have done iniquity, I will do it no more. There's the right attitude to have. It's a great attitude for anybody. Let God teach us what we have done wrong, and then we will not do that wrong anymore. That's what God expects from us, to stop the sin in our lives. All right, when we get into the Psalms, we have quite a few passages here talking about the fact that God teaches us. And Psalm 25, verse 4 and 5 says, make me know thy ways, O Lord. Teach me thy paths. Lead me in thy truth, and teach me, for thou art the God of my salvation. For thee I wait all the day. And in chapter 27, verse 11, teach me thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a level path because of my foes. Yes, God is our protection. He is our salvation. And he will protect us and guide us in the direction that will keep us from harm. And Psalm 34:11 says, come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. And so that's what all of us who believe in God should be teaching, not only our own children, but in this case, the psalmist is speaking to the children of Israel and treating them as if they are his own children, and he's imparting wisdom to them. In Psalm 86 and verse 11 says, teach me thy way, O Lord. I will walk in thy truth. Unite my heart to fear thy name. God, if you will teach me, I will do what you command. I mean, isn't that the attitude we all should have? I mean, and that's a great attitude to have. I mean, in Psalm 119, there's many verses which talks about this teaching that is to take place. In verse 12 of Psalm 119, blessed art thou, O Lord, teach me thy statutes. In verse 26, I have told of my ways, and thou hast answered me. Teach me thy statutes. In verse 33, teach me, O Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall observe it to the end. You know, that's similar to what Jesus said, be faithful until death, or all the way to the end. And so that's what we need to do. In verse 64, the earth is full of thy loving kindness, O Lord. Teach me thy statutes. And the statutes, I mean, they're equivalent to laws and precepts and will and commandments and ways of God. So, yeah, there's about 11 different words used here in Psalms which all describe the law that God gives us. All right, and Psalm 119, verse 64, okay, we just did that one. In verse 66, teach me good discernment and knowledge, for I believe in thy commandments. Yes, Lord will teach us the right way to go. We should know that. Verse 68, thou art good and doest good. Teach me thy statutes. In verse 102, I have not turned aside from thine ordinances, for thou thyself hast taught me. Yeah, when we let God teach us, we don't need to turn away from what he teaches. In verse 108, O accept the freewill offering of my mouth, O Lord, and teach me thine ordinances. In verse 124, deal with thy servant according to thy loving kindness, and teach me thy statutes. In verse 135, make thy face shine upon thy servant, and teach me thy statutes. Yes, that's how his face is going to shine upon us when we do his will. In verse 171, let my lips utter praise, for thou dost teach me thy statutes. And we jump to Psalm 143, verse 10, 11. It says, teach me to do thy will, for thou art my God. Let thy good spirit lead me on level ground. For the sake of thy name, O Lord, revive me. In thy righteousness, bring my soul out of trouble. And when you break it down, that's what following God's will is going to do. It's going to bring our soul out of trouble. So we can learn what it takes to please God by following his commands. I mean, the doctrines and precepts of men will lead to destruction, and people will be lost by following those things. And so we need to learn by instruction and by watching examples. I mean, looking at positive examples, not negative examples, but positive examples. And 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul wrote, and the things which you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, these entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. And he told the Thessalonians in chapter 4 and verse 1, finally then, brethren, we request and exhort you in the Lord Jesus that as you receive from us instruction as to how you ought to walk and please God, just as you actually do walk, that you may excel still more. I mean, that phrase, excel still more. In other words, he commends the Thessalonians, you guys are doing a great job. You received the instruction of God and you're doing it. But you know what? You need to go even better than that. I mean, so that's a problem that a lot of us face in the church is complacency. We get to a point, we know enough knowledge, and so that's it. And we don't strive to excel still more in our spirituality and in our relationship with God. So that's something we have to work on. See, God teaches us in many ways. Our job is to learn God's ways and apply his teaching to our lives. So do not waste effort in learning the doctrines and precepts of men and the false teachers that are out there. Let God teach you. And this happens by learning his word. So that's a very simple lesson. Consider these thoughts. You can be taught of God or you can be taught by the world. If you're taught by the world, your end is going to be destruction and eternal torment. But if you're taught by God and you live according to his teachings, then your salvation is going to be guaranteed for you. So think about those things. That's our lesson. And Lord willing, we'll be back again with another lesson. Bye bye for now.